Our great God, what a blessing it is every week to be able to come here and enjoy each other's fellowship, time together, catching up with each other, and an opportunity to be of kindred minds and focusing in the same area of our spiritual lives. We thank you for blessing us with this opportunity, and we ask that you continue to bless us with this opportunity until the time you see that it needs to be over. We thank you for blessing us the way you have in all of our lives with the country that we live in, the material blessings that you have bestowed upon us so richly, the opportunity to work in a country that is still free. And because of that, we realize that we're going to be accountable through that freedom for being able to reach out to others and help them know about you. We ask that you continue to bless us with opportunities to learn and most of all to share. As we go through each of our days, help us to focus on our worship to you through the lives that we live. It's through Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All righty, we're just about to get ready to start into the sacrifices themselves, but there was one more area that we needed to cover, and that is the priestly garments. We're not going to go through and read all about these priestly garments. You can do that on your own. I'm going to summarize what you're going to find. The priestly garments are in Exodus chapter 28 and 30. Now let me ask you this question. If you're thinking about the priesthood and the garments they are to wear, is there a difference between the priest and the high priest garments?
Yes.
Okay, if there is, what does that tell you?
So one's more important. They're set apart.
All right, they're set apart, they're more important. What else?
Isn't there one that's only one for Day of Atonement?
Okay, good. Exactly. I posted several questions on Facebook about it yesterday, just for things for people to think about, and I felt like some of y'all would catch it. And one of the guys that's over in Africa right now doing mission work asked me, so, well, how do you know there's a difference? So I wrote him on, I didn't want to write him too much because that would put those that are on my Facebook a little ahead of everybody else. So I wanted to kind of keep us all together. But he's 80 years old and he don't realize there's a difference in what they wear and why there's a difference. So going back to Bila's answer, yes, there's a difference, and the difference is in the Day of Atonement. And that's the only time there's a difference of how the high priest is dressed. On the other 363 days a year, or 364 days a year, how many days are there in a year?
365.
Okay, 364 days a year, he's wearing the same outfit all the rest of the priests are wearing. But on the Day of Atonement, that all changes. So that's the reason you need to know why you see where Moses lists and describes the way they're to be made and what size, and so a lot of the things that go along with how they are put together all emphasizes at what point in time of the year they're being used. And some of the things have specific reasons for them being there. So with the regular priestly garments, you have the breeches, what they call the breeches. And the breeches are what we would call today just boxer shorts that were made for them to wear underneath what they call some translation call a coat, some call it a gown. It's basically a gown because it's woven all the way through together as a one piece from the neck all the way down to the feet. So you have the breeches, they're shorts. Then you have the gown that they put on. Then you have a sash that goes around their waist. That sash is about 4 inches wide, and it wraps around the waist several times. And then with the high priest, there's also a sash, but it's a different one. Goes around the waist, goes around the ephod. Around the waist breastplate, and then it hangs down to about the ankle. So you have the gown, which is one piece, the sash, the turban, which is the headdress. That is the regular priest wear. That's what they wear in their everyday services. Now, when you get to the high priest, there's several differences in what he wears. He has made an ephod, which is basically a shoulder piece. And I guess the best way that I could think of to explain it, it's a lot like the military with the Navy, or they wear the shoulder boards with the insignia of their ranks. Well, the ephod was that same concept, except instead of shoulder boards, they had a plate with stones mounted to that plate, and each stone represented a part of a different tribe of the 12 tribes. So there's 6 on each side. That was on the shoulder. And then you have the breastplate, and the breastplate was a plate with stones on it as well, and it had little chains, golden chains, that hooked it to the ephod up here around the collar area. And they wore that breastplate over them, also with stones on it, also with all the names of the Israelites, tribes. The concept is let me ask it as a question. With it on the shoulders, on top of the shoulders, what's the significance of that? What would be the idea behind that? Responsibility. They're carrying the responsibility of the 12 tribes. Because anything goes wrong with the sacrificial system, or the nation itself goes awry, that burden is all carried on the priest's shoulders, represented by those 12 stones, 6 on each side. The breastplate also had the 12 stones, but it was over the chest, and it had the Urim and Thummim on it. That, best I can tell, was some kind of little pouch built in to that breastplate, and it most likely held little stones that were either black or white, or may have had a yes or no on them, some way that when they were making decisions for the nation itself, when they had a question that they wanted to go in and present to God, for him to answer the question, they would reach in there and pull one of these stones out. And God was the one that guided which stone came out to give them the answer they needed. And sometimes there were, in what I've read, so in my understanding, there was usually 3 stones a yes or no, and one that was blank for the answer's not available right now. So those are the parts of the high priest wear that none of the other priests could wear. Then they had a different turban that sat on their head and a band that went around their head. And on that band was a little plate let's see, I think I've got it written down here. Most holy to the Lord. So it was to remind them of their position that God's placed them in as far as the worship service of the Israelite nation. Then there was a robe that the high priest also wore. And with the robe, if I remember correctly, around the bottom of it, we talked about this, I remember back a couple of weeks ago, what was sewed on the bottom? Bells. And why were the bells there?
When it stopped, they pulled them out. If they hear it stop walking, they would pull him out with the rope.
Okay, why would he stop walking?
If
He
God
was dead.
started him.
Yeah, or if he died, he might have a heart attack and die. Whatever. They had to be able to know that he was still in there doing his thing on their behalf, and if those bells stopped and they couldn't hear him again, then they knew there was a problem.
So we had a rope tied to him.
Sometimes they tied a rope to them so that if that something happened, they could pull them out. That was not a part of God's plan. That was their own idea. And why would they want to pull him out? I mean,
They couldn't go in.
because they couldn't go in without dying. So they were going to retrieve the body that way. Now, as we look at, when we get to it, we won't cover the Day of Atonement for a while in its complexity and completeness. That'll probably come at the end of our study of the sacrifices themselves. But there is, when the priest goes in, he has to splash blood around. Well, then what? If you got blood all over the place, then what? Maybe, I don't, possibility.
Then you gotta clean up blood.
Somebody's gotta clean it up, so when are you gonna clean it up?
Well, I would assume he would, if no one else can go in there.
Yeah. But it's not done on that particular day. Or may not be done on that particular day, I'll put it that way. So what do you do with that? I'm asking that question for a purpose. You got all this blood splashed around. If it's not cleaned up that day, then when can you clean it up?
Next time we go in there.
Which would be,
Oh, the next year?
see, that's the reason I asked the question. So what do you do with that? Do they have to wait for a year to clean up the blood that was splattered around? Does that make sense?
No.
Okay,
You only
so,
clean up to the curtain.
huh?
You only clean up to the curtain.
Only clean up to the curtain? Everything after that just stays.
Maybe the cherubims burned it off.
Why could they not go back there?
Because that's where the presence of God was.
Okay, so what would make it where they could go back there?
Oh, like if he wasn't there, if the cloud and all the other wasn't there.
Right. God wasn't always in the tent. His presence wasn't always there. It was only there when he was called to be there or on the Day of Atonement. So therefore, if it didn't get cleaned up that day, they could go in the next day and clean it up.
Well, then if the guy dies, then they just wait for God to leave and go get him.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But see, because of their being afraid, because of what we're going to talk about here shortly, they come up with their own concept of, hey, what if something happened to him? Those bells quit ringing. Then what do we do? And so, do we want to leave him in the rest of the day and all night? Is that a good idea? You know,
Couldn't perform the atonement. During the atonement, they couldn't perform it.
Yeah.
He died.
Yeah.
Doing it or while doing it.
So it was just an indication that they had to stay out. God was very specific about staying out of that area as long as his presence was there. Because God told Moses, nobody can be in my presence and live. So,
Okay, so they could go, if God wasn't there, they could go back in there.
yeah.
Certain ones or any of the priests.
Now that, I don't know, I hadn't separated that out yet, so I don't know 100% sure. I can't answer that question at the moment. But I'm assuming on what other things I know that anybody can clean it up once his presence is not there.
Well,
Because they have, see, the Levites have to take all of the part of the Levite clan has to take that whole thing down, pack it up, and move it when they go, right?
I was just gonna say that. So somebody had to go in there and put the poles on their shoulders and carry it out when they moved
Exactly.
the tent.
Exactly.
So somebody was in there.
So, it's only the high priest can go back through there once a year when God's presence is there. Even if it's not on the Day of Atonement, but God's not going to, as far as I know in Scripture, God's not going to, well, no, I'm not going to say that because I hadn't studied that out far enough to know the answer for sure on that. So I'll just leave what I'm thinking right there and move on till I have an opportunity to look at it a little closer. But God's very, he's got things nailed down the way he wants it done, and he ain't gonna accept it any other way. But yet, at the same time, we have to take into consideration when they take that thing down and move it, there's a reason they can do that, and the reason has to be that God's presence is not there. Okay. Go to Exodus chapter 40. We're going to kind of leave the priestly garments behind simply because we're going to come in contact with them again as we get to the Day of the Day of Atonement, as God has it structured after this first incident here. But there's some things that we have to tie together as this tabernacle is set up. So we're going to look at chapter 40, and then we're going to kind of move back and forth in the text, kind of put some things together, because not everything is in chronological order as we read it. So Exodus chapter 40, they built everything, got the tabernacle set up, everything is being put in place. Then the Lord said to Moses, set up the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, on the first day of the first month. Place the Ark of the Covenant, the law, in it, and shield the Ark with the curtain. Bring in the table and set out what belongs on it. Then bring in the lampstand and set up its lamps. Place the golden altar of incense in front of the Ark of the Covenant, law, and put the curtain at the entrance of the tabernacle, to the tabernacle. Place the altar of burnt offering in front of the entrance to the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. Place the basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put water in it. Not Kool-Aid, water. Set up the courtyard around it and put the curtain at the entrance to the courtyard. Take the atonement oil and anoint the tabernacle and everything in it. Consecrate, word consecrate means dedicate, thank you. And all its furnishings, and it will be holy. Then anoint the altar of burnt offering, all its utensils. Consecrate the altar, and it will be most holy. Anoint the basin and its stands, consecrate them. Bring Aaron and his sons to the entrance to the tent of meeting, and wash them with water, not Kool-Aid, but water. Then dress Aaron in his sacred garments. Then dress Aaron in his sacred garments. If they're his sacred garments, then what garments are they?
The atonement garments.
All right, the atonement garments, the garments of the high priest, because he's gonna be serving as the high priest and not just as a priest. Anoint him and consecrate him so he may serve me as the priest. Bring his sons and dress them in tunics. Anoint them just as you anointed their father, so that they may serve me as priest. Their anointing will be to the priesthood that will continue throughout their generations. Moses did everything just as the Lord commanded him. When he says their anointing will be to a priesthood, and that will continue throughout their generations. So the priesthood, how do you become a priest? If you have to be in the Levite clan. How do you become a priest?
Wasn't it
To be
like one passed
anointed.
away, they had to replace them and they had to,
Replace them how?
by
There.
consecrating him by the other priests, having God choose them.
So it's-
Okay,
Anoint them like you anointed their father.
okay,
So it's like, is it like a passed down thing?
all right, passed down how?
Generations.
Through generations. So every generation of priest is passed down by the generation. It's not inherited, it's not given, let me rephrase that. It's not given, not passed along to just anybody. It comes down through generations. So the next priesthood would be the children, and then their children after them, and it continues to be passed down that way. And when you get into the Hebrews, you get into this is good information to have when you're reading the book of Hebrews, just because Hebrews is called Hebrews because it's written to a totally Hebrew audience, and it talks about Jesus and how his priesthood come about. And I'm just going to chunk this in there for a thought. So, how did Jesus become priest?
One of his parents was from the Levites.
Huh?
Was one of his parents from the Levites?
Well, yes, I'm sorry, yes. They were both from the Levites.
I had my
Or,
family.
I'm sorry, they were, yeah, both from the priestly clan, but let me see. Let me
No,
rethink
because he
this.
was from the line of Judah.
They are his family was from the line of Judah. So being from the line of Judah, he wasn't a direct line through the Levite clan.
But wasn't Mary one of, I thought Mary was a Levite. Was that not it? I wish I had my family tree up here. My family tree would show, okay.
That's okay. There's a reason I'm asking the question, because Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, not from the tribe of Levi.
Yeah.
So how could he become high priest?
It was a different, yeah, more, yeah. It was not the
Is the new
same,
covenant yet?
but it wasn't from the same priest line. It says, doesn't say like ordered after Melchizedek or something
Yeah,
like
after
that.
the line of Melchizedek. That's Hebrews chapter 6. Well, what does it mean to be from the line, in the, how's it worded? in the line of Melchizedek? Was it from bloodline?
Something to do with God. But was it because he was from his father? These are coming from their father?
The easiest way to think through this question is to think, where did Melchizedek come from? How did he, let me rephrase that, how did he get his priesthood? Huh? He was appointed by God. He didn't come from the Levi clan. He was directly appointed by God. That's the way Jesus came. He was directly appointed by God. Because he was from the line of Judah, he couldn't serve as priest or high priest. So because he was not from a direct descendant of the tribe of Levi, and he was from the tribe of Judah, and God selected him, then if God selected him, how does that work? God set laws in place, didn't he?
Yes.
Is he going to break any of them?
No.
So if he can't break them, then how does, by law, by the Mosaic law, how can Jesus become high priest?
Well, the Mosaic law wasn't in effect because they had already broke it.
All right, good. That's your answer.
Is it something sort of like how Samuel appointed King David, and it was kind of like that through? Not necessarily kind of foreshadowing, sort of, but God chose David, and Samuel was the one to go through to appoint him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, but David came through the bloodline of kingship, but he wasn't a priest.
Right.
But the answer lies in the fact, and this goes back to what's written in Hebrews. It goes back to the fact, the Hebrew writer says, when there's a change in the priesthood, there has also to be a change in the law. Now I'm moving away from our lesson for tonight, but it's still good to help us put this stuff together. So, before Jesus could become high priest, there had to be a change in the law, right? So this goes back to Ashley's response. When did the law change? If you were dealing with the immediate present historical time frame, what gives you an indication that the law has already changed?
Like if we're in their time, when Jesus is on the cross?
No, before then.
Well, they're
Broken covenant.
preaching salvation.
Sacrifices.
That's true, but there's something I'm trying to dig out here.
Is it broken covenant?
Okay, that because they broke the covenant is no longer any good. But what's your first indication that I'm aware of that tells you that the old law is no longer in existence, but before Jesus starts his ministry?
Well, John the Baptist is preaching forgiveness of sins without sacrifice.
Okay, so if the law was still valid, then could John the Baptist be baptizing for the forgiveness of sins?
No.
Couldn't do that, could he? So the law has already changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now that begins to set us up for backtracking where the law changed, and we've had that discussion many times, that it changed back during the time of Jeremiah, which is about 600 years before Jesus was born, that God said, I'm going to make a new covenant, kainos, new in time and new in kind. So that's the way Jesus could become high priest and sacrifice himself on a cross. He couldn't do that until he accepted the high priest position, which we've talked about that from Matthew in Jesus' time in the garden. So now we've kind of got that put together. That's why Jesus could serve as high priest, is because the old law was no longer being recognized. And the first indication for us would be John's baptism. Because can you have the sacrificial system saying, offer an animal for forgiveness, and John's baptism saying, you can be baptized for forgiveness? Can you make those two covenants work together?
No.
No, they won't. They can't work together. You can't have one going opposite the other. They both have to be just alike. So they won't run in tandem with each other. So that's the reason we know that the law has already changed. And that will help you clarify, we've talked about this before too, that helps you clarify Colossians 2:14, which talks about, in the English language, says, the law and its codes that are against us, he took it away, nailing it to the cross. Well, and we've talked about that. It wasn't the law that was nailed to the cross. It was their debt that was created by the law that was nailed to the cross, that was wiped. Their debt for their sins were forgiven, placed over here. God said, I'll deal with them later. That happened at the cross. But them sins laying over here created debt. That debt was paid when Jesus died for those Jews under that law system. Okay, we've hammered on that enough, but that just kind of brings it full circle for us. All right, now we'll go back to Exodus chapter 40. They dressed Aaron in the sacred garments, anointed him, and consecrated him so that he may serve me as priest. Bring his sons and dress them in tunics. Anoint them just as you anointed their fathers, so that they may serve me as priests. Their anointing will be to the priesthood that will continue throughout their generations. Moses did everything just as the Lord commanded him. So the tabernacle was set up on the first day of the first month in the second year. When Moses set up the tabernacle, he put the basin in place, erected the frames, inserted the crossbars, set it to post. Then he spread the tent over the tabernacle and put the covering over the tent as the Lord commanded him. He took the tablets of the covenant of law, placed them in the ark, attached the poles to the ark, and put the atonement cover over it. Then he brought the ark into the tabernacle and hung the shielding curtain and shielded the ark of the covenant law as the Lord commanded him. Moses placed the table in the tent of meeting on the north side of the tabernacle outside the curtain and set out the bread on it before the Lord as the Lord commanded him. He placed the lampstand in the tent of meeting opposite the table on the south side of the tabernacle and set up the lamp before the Lord as the Lord commanded him. Moses placed the golden altar in the tent of meeting in front of the curtain and burned fragrant incense on it as the Lord commanded him. Then he put up the curtain at the entrance to the tabernacle. So he's working from back to front. He set the altar of burnt offering near the entrance to the tabernacle, the tent of meeting, and offered it on burnt offerings and grain offerings as the Lord commanded him. He placed a basin between the tent of meeting and the altar and put the water in it for washing. And Moses and Aaron, his sons, used it to wash their hands and feet. They washed whenever they entered the tent of meeting or approached the altar as the Lord commanded Moses. Then Moses set up the courtyard around the tabernacle and the altar and put up the curtain at the entrance to the courtyard, and so Moses finished the work. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Moses could not enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. So see, that's one of your indications that as long as God's presence is there, now it's limited to who can go in. In all the travels of the Israelites, whenever the cloud lifted from above the tabernacle, they would set out. But if the cloud did not lift, they did not set out until the day it lifted. So the cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle by day, and fire was in the cloud by night, in the sight of the Israelites during their travels. Okay, so now we've got everything in place. Now we're going to go over to Leviticus chapter lost it here, I'll get it back in a moment. In chapter 9. Okay, so we got the tabernacles all set up, all of its furnishings in place. God has come down, his presence has come down and settled into the tent. Nobody can go in there now. Now, chapter 9 is the continuation of what we just finished reading in Exodus 40. On the 8th day, that instantly should tell you what? On the 8th day.
Didn't it start out with the first day of the first month in chapter 40?
Okay, think about the number 8. What does it represent?
News.
New beginning.
So the
So
day after
now
the
something
atonement.
new is fixing to start. It hadn't started yet, but it's about to start right here, right now. The sacrificial system is starting. That's what the number 8 should tell you right here, because we know that the number 8 stands for newness, new beginnings. So something new is about to start, something that's not been complete in the past. We know that Cain and Abel made sacrifices, but that was just the beginning of the sacrificial system. Now God has put the whole system together. This is inauguration day. This is the very first day of the beginning of the sacrificial system. On the 8th day, Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, take a bull calf for your sin offering. So what's the first thing he's got to do before he can act as high priest?
Sacrifice for himself.
Sacrifice for himself. And notice, God didn't say, go get a goat, go get a sheep. What did he tell him to go get?
Go get a bowl.
A young calf
A bull calf.
and
Why?
a ram.
I mean, you'll pick this up again in the sin offering when we get to Leviticus chapter 4. Why a bull?
Is it because that was one of the gods that they had worshipped?
No. Think bull, goat, sheep.
It was the most
Big.
valuable.
'Cause he wanted
Most
steak.
valuable.
He
It's the
wanted
most
steak.
valuable. It requires the most money to purchase. So God says, you are the high priest. So therefore, for your sin, you have to offer not a lamb or a goat, but for yourself. Why? Why does it have to be the most expensive?
Because you're saying you're giving God all I have and all I am. Isn't that part of what those sacrifices are? Like,
You're right, but you're ahead of us. I mean, you're kind of ahead of the system.
More
This is
responsibility.
a sin offering, not a burnt offering. This is a sin offering. Burnt offerings are for worship, which we'll get to that when we get to the sacrifices. This
More
is,
blood.
huh?
More blood.
No?
More responsibility.
Okay. Go with that. He's got more responsibility, which puts him,
A higher ranking.
yes, the highest ranker. Because of his position, then God requires more.
More.
Now, if we were taking that through to today, what would that look like? Who would have to offer the bull? If, I'm just hypothetical, if the sacrificial system was in place today, who would have to offer the bull for their sins?
Pastor.
well, Jesus is the high priest.
Yes,
So-
but in a church setting,
The preacher.
no,
Or the elders.
the shepherds. Because they're the ones that are the overseers of the congregation. So they hold the most responsible position within the structure of God's church. So, the more authority, the higher the position, the more God requires. So on the 8th day, Moses summoned Aaron and his sons and the elders. Now the elders here just means the older ones of Israel. He said to Aaron, take a bull calf for your sin offering and a ram for your burnt offering. Now that's where your part would come in. We'll understand that better when we get there, as far as the meaning behind it. Take a ram for your burnt offering, both without defect, and present them before the Lord. Then say to the Israelites, take a male goat for a sin offering, a calf and a lamb, both a year old without defect, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for a fellowship offering. My translation uses fellowship. I don't like that. If your translation uses that, we're going to correct that. Keep that in mind. We'll see it again when we get to all of the sacrifices. They call it a fellowship offering. The scripture calls it a peace offering.
Mine says peace.
Yes, that's what it should be. They consider it a fellowship offering because as we cover the peace offering, you'll figure out why they call it a fellowship offering. But the text never calls it a fellowship offering. It's always called a peace offering. Why do you think it would be called a peace offering?
Peace.
There you go. Peace offering is just exactly what it says. It's an offering given after peace has been reestablished. Okay, so they're to bring a ram for a peace offering to sacrifice before the Lord, together with a grain offering mixed with oil, olive oil. For today the Lord will appear to you. For today the Lord will appear to you. So keep that phrase in mind for just a moment. They took the things Moses commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the entire assembly came near and stood before the Lord. Then Moses said, this is what the Lord has commanded you to do, so that the glory of the Lord may appear to you. So he may appear to you. Moses said to Aaron, come to the altar and sacrifice your sin offering, your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and the people. Sacrifice the offering that is for the people and make atonement. The word atonement means to cover, thank you, for them as the Lord has commanded. So Aaron came to the altar and slaughtered the calf as a sin offering for himself. His son brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger into the blood and put it on the horns of the altar. The rest of the blood he poured out at the base of the altar. I'm going to cover one thing here. We'll pick up the other when we get to the sacrifices themselves. He's going to put the blood on the horn of the altar, and the rest of the blood he's going to pour out at the base of the altar. Why? You're going to run into this again when we cover the sacrifices. You're going to find places where they pour the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. That's okay. That's the reason I asked the question, is to just bring it out.
I'm ready to write my notes though.
Wait, why he put the blood on the altar?
No, why did he pour it out at the base of the altar?
Because, hold on. Because if it's gonna be burned, he doesn't want the blood to be burned in that offering, right?
Okay, that's true. That we'll see that in the burnt offering, that the parts are being washed. So we'll pick that up. But what I'm trying to take you back to is the beginning
Is it for
of our study.
payment of sin?
When God set the plan of salvation in place, where did he base it off of?
The garden.
You mean the hinge pin?
Okay, that was the pattern that they were to build the tabernacle and everything off of. Which direction did the tabernacle face?
Oh, east.
Why?
New beginnings.
Yes, it represented the
Newness.
new day, sun comes up in the east, so something new's about to happen.
Yes.
What else do you know about what comes from the east? Huh?
Jesus.
Well, the star and the wise men and all that.
Okay, so Jesus, right. As a baby, and his star came from the east. Or was that in the east? So when God is putting the plan of salvation together, where's he working from?
Heaven to west. East to
Exactly.
west.
He's going from the end to the beginning. And we know that how? How do we know God is starting at the end and working backwards to put things in place? Or as he puts things in place?
Because he had the plan before the beginning of the foundation, and then he worked his way to that.
All right, exactly. The plan, God's plan of salvation or scheme of redemption started in eternity before the earth ever began. So in my mind, the way I can remember it is before there was ever before there was ever a mountain called Calvary, there was already a cross, right?
Right.
So that's the way I remember it. So God is working from Jesus in the east, everything starting here, working back towards the garden, and then from the garden, we put things together. So, let's see, where was I?
Why the blood was poured on the altar.
Yes,
on
thank
the
you,
basin.
thank you. I have no notes on this, and so I'm basically through with my outline here that I throw together this afternoon. Throw together, that's not the right word. Put together, because I didn't throw it, took hours to put together. But, so the blood, working from what you know here, that we're working from what started in eternity going this way. Tell me, from what you know about Jesus and his time frame, why was the blood poured out at the base of the altar?
Cover the Gentiles.
Say it again.
Cover the Gentiles.
I'm sorry, Corey. I didn't wear my hearing aids, and so I'm having a hard time here.
Cover the Gentiles.
Not quite. Think about Jesus' death.
It's gonna shed blood.
Think about Jesus' death.
Blood spilled to the ground.
Blood where?
Spilled to the ground.
Spilled to the ground. At the base of his altar. Because his altar was the cross, right?
Oh, okay.
So that's the reason they were to pour the remainder of the blood at the base of the altar. Because it's gonna later represent Jesus' blood poured out at the base of the cross.
How'd they know to do that though? Is it because God told them to do it that way?
God told them to do it that way, exactly. No, they didn't understand that, and they wouldn't understand it until Christ comes.
Got it.
And then, you know, he told the apostles just before he was to be crucified, John 4:15 through 17, in that conversation he had with them right there at the end, he told them, when the Comforter comes, he will remind you and teach you, because I couldn't give everything to you in this time frame. I mean, I'm paraphrasing it a little bit, but there were things they weren't ready for, that they didn't understand. We know that based off of Mark chapter 6, verse 50 or 52, when Jesus fed over 5,000 people with 5 loaves, 2 fish, and then he sent them across the Sea of Galilee, and the storm came up, and they got afraid, and then Mark makes the statement that they didn't understand the loaves and the fishes. So there were things that happened during Jesus' ministry that they wouldn't understand until later. There were things that were put together in the sacrificial system that they wouldn't understand at the time, but they would understand it later. And we can understand it because we're past that. So we have all the information to look back on. So that in time, they would eventually go, oh, now I understand why we poured out the blood at the base of the altar. Okay, 9:23, Moses and Aaron, when they went into the tent of meeting, when they came out, they blessed the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to all the people. Fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed the burnt offering, the fat portions on the altar. When all the people saw it, they shouted for joy and fell face down. Why did they do that?
Because God accepted their offering.
Exactly. God accepted what they had put together. This was God saying, checkmate, check it off. It's good. You've done good. I'm accepting what you've put together. You've done it exactly the way I told you to do it. You didn't mismeasure it. You didn't decide it needed to be a quarter inch longer, a quarter inch shorter. You did exactly what I told you to do it, exactly how I told you to do it, and I'm pleased with it. So now, let's move forward now. And the people went, yay! They've been building this sucker for a year. And all of the work that had to go into it, and all of the precision cutting, and the gold work, and all of the sewing, and I guarantee you, there wasn't that many men do the sewing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the women were also involved. So everybody's celebrating because God is well pleased with what they've done. Okay, now, if we've got our hands around that, and I think we have, now this falls into what we call chapter 10 of the letter. Aaron's son, well, wait a minute. Let me back up one. Look, before we move farther, let's pick up one other thing. Look at Leviticus chapter 6. As God starts explaining the sacrificial system. In chapter 6, starting verse 8, says, the Lord said to Moses, give Aaron and his sons this command. These are the regulations for the burnt offering. The burnt offering is to remain on the altar hearth throughout the night till the morning, and the fire must be kept burning on the altar. The priest shall then put on his linen clothes with linen undergarments next to his body, and shall remove the ashes of the burnt offering that the fire has consumed on the altar, and place them beside the altar. Then he is to take off his clothes and put on others, and carry the ashes outside the camp to a place that is ceremonially clean. The fire on the altar must be kept burning, it must not go out. Every morning the priest is to add firewood and arrange the burnt offering on the fire and burn the fat of the peace offering on it. The fire must be kept burning on the altar continuously, it must not go out. How many times has he said?
More than 5.
So, what God's intentions were for that fire
To continue and keep
to
going.
continue, to never go out. Who started that fire?
God did.
God started the fire when he accepted what they put together. And he expects that fire to be kept burning all the way through. Now, how would that happen?
The priest continually take care of it.
Okay, when they move locations.
God keeps it going. I don't know.
No.
Torch.
How would you keep it going?
Feed it.
Torch.
Keep putting wood on it and like feeding it, like she said.
On the altar as you carry it?
No.
Well, or like he said, with a torch, then use that torch to get the altar.
Something similar to
Or like
that.
a scepter pan or something.
Take the hot coals,
Yeah.
and you keep those coals.
That's
And then once you move to the next location and set back up, you take those very same coals from that very first fire that God started and you rekindle that fire again.
Oh, that's nerve wracking.
Could you imagine being in charge of those coals?
I would have died.
Yeah.
What if you just dropped it and just?
I can't even start a fire in my grill. Like,
We've seen that.
So, how did
How long
they?
is that fire supposed to be going?
Huh?
Forever.
Forever?
Yep.
Forever, till the sacrificial system was over.
So then, like when the Northern Kingdom, when they split and the 10 tribes become the Northern Kingdom and they start doing this on the mountain instead of the temple, God didn't go light their fire. So how did they think that was working?
Okay. Was it?
They weren't
No,
supposed to be-
no, I'm not saying it was, but like, how did they get to that train of thought?
The same way we get to those same train of thoughts.
Generation.
They didn't need God's presence.
We're gonna do it our way. God, I know this is what you had planned, and I know it's a good plan, but we've got a better idea here, and we're gonna do it our way.
Well, and then when they rebuild these temples that are destroyed, unless God's coming and lighting that fire in their altar, how do they not realize this is not?
Even the temple
I know.
that was destroyed in 70 didn't have God's fire.
None of them past Solomon's day had it. I mean, let me back up.
Jeremiah.
By the time Jeremiah's day, none of them had it.
So is
The
it?
Ark of the Covenant's not even there anymore.
Well, and I'm sure that the higher up people knew that, but the little common people didn't know that probably because
Well,
they'd
and the
never
higher
been in
up
there.
people, even they knew it, what did they do with it?
But so is it like our government now? They know things that we don't know, and we don't need to know them, and we just keep going and paying our tithing, and it becomes this big
They
political.
don't want
Yeah.
you to stop giving.
It's the same. Even though it was done away with, they're continuing to try to keep it together, and it doesn't make any difference because God stopped recognizing it. Why? I can't tell you why it didn't soak in, and I'm not sure that it didn't, like you said, with some of the priesthood. But I don't think, in a way, we're much different than they were then. Because we have this big to-do going on right now. It had been for a while in the state of Texas and several other states that have fallen in behind it, of placing the 10 Commandments on the wall in every room in the schoolhouses. Okay, is that a bad idea? As long as you're keeping God in front of people, it can't be a bad idea, right? But why do people want to post them up there?
Because probably would be more controversial to put Jesus up there.
Would be, but I'm trying to establish a point here. Is that they don't, the people that have pushed that concept, and I'm not, I think it's great because it keeps God in front of people. But even in the church, how many people sitting in pews in this building think that we're still under the 10 Commandments today?
The majority, I'm sure.
All but one. Most everybody will say, well, we're under all but one. No, we never was under them. That law was given to Moses and the Israelites, never was given to us. That's Deuteronomy chapter 5.
That wasn't applied to us because we weren't there back then.
So that's I mean, that's just one example of what I was thinking is you could tell people all day long that the law wasn't taken away at the cross. The debt that the law created was taken away at the cross. But when people read Colossians 2:14, they read it in English as if Jesus' death took that old law away. Well, how could it? It had been non-existent for 600 years as far as God was concerned. And if it wasn't, then John the Baptist, he came doing things that wasn't right if the law was still in place, right? So you follow this, I'm not going to use that term, it's not a good term to use, but the idea is we fall into things that are incorrect and we never go back and research it and check it to see if it's right or not, so it just keeps getting passed on from generation to generation. And so I think that's the same thing that they had a problem with here. The Ark of the Covenant's gone. Well, if the Ark of the Covenant's gone, that's where God's presence settled in in the tent of meeting, or the tabernacle rather, and where it would be in the temple area. But that Ark of the Covenant is gone. So that means God's presence is not gone. In Ezekiel chapter 9, chapter 9, I believe it is, where it talks about, we've talked about this in brief in times past, when it says God's presence rose up from above the cherubim and went to the threshold of the temple. Meaning,
He's leaving.
I'm leaving. Y'all ain't not paying me a bit of mind. I'm done. I'm leaving this, and I'm not coming back. And he doesn't. So, I think it's just people kept in ignorance and continue to stay in ignorance. In Hosea chapter 4, verse 6, God says through Hosea, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. Because you priests reject knowledge, I'm rejecting you as my priest. God says, my people are destroyed because of you, priest. That same concept. They're not wanting to teach about God. They want to teach about what they think God wants, what he meant. If my memory serves me right, that's what the Talmud is all about. It's the Jewish interpretation of what they think God meant by what he said in the law. Can't work on the Sabbath. Well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is if you're walking through your tent or your house and your dentures fall out, if they're made of wood, you could pick them up and put them back in. But if they're made of metal, no, that takes more work to pick them up, so can't do that on Sabbath. If you happen to be sewing on Friday night and you put a needle in your cloak or in your clothes just to keep it, not lose it, and you put those same clothes on, then you're disregarding the Sabbath, because that's considered work, because that needle is in your clothes. If you're wearing sandals that have metal tacks holding the sole to the shoe itself, it takes more energy to pick up those shoes because of those tacks, so that's work on the Sabbath. You can't wear them until after the Sabbath. That's things that were built out into the Talmud. They were thoughts that the Jewish leaders had, coming from what they thought God meant by do no work on the Sabbath. So they had distorted everything God had put together so badly that, why wouldn't they keep doing the sacrifices? The big wigs told them they should, even though the big wigs May or may not know whether they should or not. But there's elements missing out of the sacrificial system that tells you it's not any good anymore, but they're not paying attention to it. So I hope maybe that brings a little bit of clarity to the thought. If this fire goes out on this altar, there's something else that you know has stopped.
Your forgiveness.
Worship.
Forgiveness, true. Worship, for sure. When fire goes out, worship is quit. That tells you they've walked away from God. So anytime you see that the altar has no fire on it, that's what you know. Okay, now, let's go back to Leviticus 10. I want to cover this part, and we'll have enough time fairly to cover it. So we're in the inauguration day. Everything's been accepted by God. He's given them instructions to not let the fire go out. And I didn't bring this in, but I think it's in Leviticus chapter 16, verse 12. They're told to take, when they move to a different altar, they're to take that fire from the original to start the one on the other altar, like the altar of burnt incense, to start the fire on it. They can't just run and grab a match and some wood. They have to use the fire that comes from the altar. With that in mind, and I'm pretty sure that's Leviticus 16:12, but you can check me on that. Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, took their censers, put fire in them, and added incense, and they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord, contrary to his command. So fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. So tell me, from what little information that you have, why did God strike these two men dead?
It was unauthorized.
Okay, first thing is, the fire they got did not come from the altar of burnt offering. So it came from the wrong place. So they got the wrong stuff, or they got the stuff from the wrong place. So that's one of the mistakes. What's another mistake?
Well, would not have been Aaron's place to be doing those things, not theirs?
Exactly. The things they did were the work of the high
High
priest, not the priest. So that's another thing. Give me another indication here from the text that lets you know why they got burned up. Goes along with what you just talked about. It's about the middle of verse 2.
They were in his presence.
Oh, they went behind the curtain?
Exactly. Who's the only one that can go behind that curtain?
Just the high priest.
Only the high priest. They're not high priests. So they were the wrong people
At the wrong time.
at the wrong place.
Yep.
Doing the wrong thing.
Oh.
And we've talked about this in the past. Where did the fire come from?
The cherubim.
Came from the cherubim. It's woven
In the
into
curtain.
the curtain. Remember, the cherubims are woven into the curtain as a symbol for them to understand those cherubims are there.
Mm.
In fact, they're not only woven into just the curtain, they're woven into all the internal curtains all the way around inside. But because they died before the Lord, that tells you that they tried to go back there behind the curtain. So
was
the
it
cherubim.
really, was it really the cherubim that killed them?
Yes,
Yes.
because they were in the Lord's presence. And what is the function, what is one of the functions that we know of for a cherubim?
Guard.
To guard. They were to guard the way to the garden, entrance to the garden. They were to guard the way to the entrance of the most holy place, the tabernacle. Because they were the guards, they were the ones in charge of the destruction, the judgment. Okay, now let's carry this on down through the scripture a little bit
You would
farther.
think they would know better.
Well,
What were they trying to do?
this will be answered in just a few more verses.
Okay.
No, that's fine. I appreciate the question. I really do.
Alright,
Okay, so, this is what the Lord spoke of when he said, among those who approach me, I will be proven holy. If you don't believe I'm not set apart from any other God, because that's what the word holy means, right? Set apart. If you don't believe I'm not the one set apart from any other God, just try me.
Mhm.
And I'll show you how I'm set apart. And I will be honored by all people, not just the top brass, but in the sight of all the people. You don't think that, and when we get to the Day of Atonement, you'll see this come out. But on the Day of Atonement, everybody stood outside their tent and their focus was on the tabernacle. This is Inauguration Day. Is there anybody there that's not gonna know what's happened today to the bayou?
Not everybody's gonna know what happened.
Yeah, everybody's gonna know because they're all standing there looking straight at that tabernacle. And so God says, try me and see, this is what happens now. Inside of everybody, I've been proven right. Aaron remained silent. Verse 4, Moses summoned Mishael and Eleaz, son of Aaron's uncle Uziel, and said to them, come here, carry your cousins outside the camp, away from the front of the sanctuary. So they came and carried them, still in their tunics, outside the camp as Moses ordered. Then Moses said to Aaron and his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, my version says, do not let your hair become unkept. What does yours say?
Do not let the hair of your heads hang loose. And do
Hang
not-
loose.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Do not uncover your heads nor tear your clothes.
Okay, so if you take those concepts that's just been brought out, what's he telling them?
Or
Aren't
don't
those
mourn
signs of
over 'em.
mourning?
Do not mourn over what's just happened. And my version, I've X'd it out. It says, do not let your hair be unkept. That's not what it says. If you look at the original language and compare it to what we know, it means not to unbridle the turban, which means don't take the turban off as if you're mourning for these two idiots.
Aw.
Do not tear your clothes. That's another sign of mourning. Or you will die, and the Lord will be angry with the whole community. Uh-oh,
Dang.
Everybody's getting it.
everybody's gonna be in trouble. See, that's the reason the high priest has this position, has to offer the most expensive animal because of his position, and because of his position, when things get messed up in the priesthood, guess who has to also pay the price?
The high priest.
All of the people.
Oh.
That's what he said.
Oh, and the.
Be angry with the whole community. Okay, but your relatives and all the Israelites may mourn for those the Lord has destroyed by fire. Do not leave the entrance to the tent of meeting, or you will die, because the Lord's anointing oil is on you. So they did as Moses said. God says, this is inauguration day. This is the very first day, and the most important thing that I'm putting together here. And these two fools decided to do something stupid. Why was their punishment so severe? Because this is the very first day. It's inauguration day. If God had let it slide, then what?
Well, just because I was editing your video from like video 3, it said they would have treated his law casually.
Okay.
Was how you said it back then.
Man, I'm glad you said that. Better than what I was gonna say. If God had just let it slide, then they would have never had any respect for God. Especially if it's inauguration day. Assassinate the president, that's bad. But if you do it on inauguration day, that's gonna bring down more wrath.
Wait, I'm confused. So the priests couldn't mourn, but the relatives?
Relatives could,
Okay.
because they're not a part of the priesthood.
Yeah.
Except
Dang.
they were-
But they're not in the priesthood yet.
Okay, now here's the answer to your question before we got there. I feel like. Then the Lord said to Aaron, you and your sons are not to drink wine or other ferment drink whenever you go into the tent of meeting, or you will die. This is a lasting ordinance for the generation to come, so that you can distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean, and so that you can teach the Israelites all the decrees the Lord has given them through Moses. Why do you think, based upon what we just read, that Nadab and Abihu did something so stupid?
They were drunk.
They were drunk. Nothing in the text directly tells us that, but God put this stipulation in right after it happened, right?
Yeah.
So it must be tied into what just happened.
Mm.
So there's a drink offering, that's poured out also at the base of the altar of wine. Why would you pour wine out at the base of the altar?
It's like the
Unclean.
fruit of the vine offering and Jesus and ties them back into
Okay.
all of that.
Fruit of vine represented
His blood.
Jesus' blood. So it's another shadow.
Okay, so if they had come out of Egypt, which I guess, no, they're not 40 years out of Egypt. But if you think about all the pagan idol worships, they were big, huge parties.
Yes.
They were
absolutely.
disgusting.
Yes.
So that they may have been pulling some of that in with them with that thought.
There's a good possibility, you're right.
And God's like, nope.
You're right. There is that possibility because of the exposure to pagan worship. But based upon what God has just told them, you're not to drink wine and then go into the tent of meeting, it's most likely what got Nadab and Abihu in trouble. They got soused up, was making stupid decisions, and did the things they did, and it cost them their life. It not only cost them their life, but it also cost them their salvation. Okay, we're 8 minutes after 7. We'll wrap it up right there. So the reason Nadab and Abihu died, let me rephrase that. The reason Nadab and Abihu was put to death instantaneously and severely punished because of their acts was based upon the fact that this is the first day Inauguration Day, the new beginning, the number 8, right? The new beginning, the very beginning. God couldn't let that slide. He wouldn't have anyway, but especially on Inauguration Day. So that helps you answer the question of why they were killed. Wrong people doing the wrong thing at the wrong time for the wrong reason, in the wrong way. Okay. Any questions? Answers? Snide remarks?
Well, that would roll forward to our time of where people do baptism wrong or other things maybe outside of God's realm.
Yeah.
And God won't accept it.
No. Good, and that's, it, those things happen based off of people's ignorance. And people's ignorance based off of them not being taught. And that ignorance is even within the Lord's people. It's not just in the denominational world or the other religious world. It's also embedded in God's people. And somewhere or another, we have to work them out of those things.